Okay, I think we're complete on the side of the panelists. We're still waiting for Esteban. Well, we've promoted him.
You hear me?
Yes, Pedro, we hear you. That's great. Okay. Then it's 10 o'clock. I would say let's get started. Hello and welcome everyone to this year's edition of the FEBA Annual Forum on Food Aid and Social Inclusion. My name is Lily Renner. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Officer here at FEBA, and on behalf of myself and the entire staff, we're delighted that so many participants are joining today and showed interest in our webinar. We received more than 130 registrations, which for us is a big number. So we are in a year full of changes. The European elections are coming up, various national elections are taking place, and it's the first year of the active implementation of the direct material support for ESF Plus, and which is now incorporating FEAD. So just to give you a bit of an insight, over the past 9 years, so from 2014 to 2022, the food banks in Europe, represented by FEBA, distributed a total amount of around 1.3 million tons of FEAD products. Thus, an average amount of 150,000 tons of FEAD products were handled by FEBA members annually. So today we want to dive into the perspectives of food banks and various stakeholders on their experiences and best practices, as well as challenges when it comes to food aid and social inclusion. Before we start, I'd like to highlight some housekeeping rules. As you've probably seen, the webinar is being recorded just for internal purposes. For the speakers, as we're quite on a tight schedule, we want to give you all an equal chance to speak. So once your time is up, I will interrupt. And for the participants, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and we will pick them up during the Q&A session later. So without further ado, I want to give the floor to Simona Pulbert from the European Commission from DG Ample for the opening remarks.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me, and okay, thanks. Many thanks for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here with you online, and for giving me this opportunity to talk about the support of ESF Plus and former and still FEAD, because it's not yet fully closed. I really think that the topic that we have here today, how material support can pave the path towards social inclusion, is really important in these very changing times after a series of crises, and as you have mentioned, a very political challenging year this year, with the new commission hopefully in place by the end of the year, and with the start also of the ESF Plus program, a bit delayed also, but by these difficult moments that we had in the previous year. It's true that this social and economic situation, very difficult situation that we have now, it was fully affected by the war in Ukraine, by the cost of living crisis, and previously by the COVID, and all these operations under the programs were really affected, because we had seen amplified and exacerbated pre-existing social inequalities, a rising number of people in Europe falling into food and material poverty, and they were increasingly reliant on food banks or other similar service in order to be able to meet their basic needs. So in this context, I think it's important to highlight again the importance of the work of your organizations and your partner organizations that you will have here invited later in the discussions, because it's really important, the work that you do in this field. Without you, we cannot implement these programs. You are key in supporting the most deprived, and you were also very ready since the beginning to adapt to these changing times and be able to come in support to these people. I would also like to give a bit of political context from the Commission side. I will recall this social pillar action plan that we have. And in this framework, we work with all the programs in order to tackle poverty and to reach the targets that this action plan has put in place. It's about reducing the number of people at risk of poverty or social exclusion by at least 15 million by 2030, including at least 5 million less of children in poverty, which indeed is very ambitious. But we hope that it's still realistic, and with support from all key organizations and good partnership, we can return to a good path of economic and social convergence. So this action plan, in fact, it puts forward an integrated approach, and it's about this integrated approach that maybe we should talk in this context of material deprivation, because to address all these needs in all the stages of life, it's needed to have a very integrated area of intervention. So we have seen that we have measures within the European Child Guarantee, the European Platform on Combating Homelessness, and the EU Framework on Minimum Income. So all these are initiatives that are very close linked to the concerns of the groups also addressed by FEAD and ESF Plus material deprivation. I would also like to remind you that the integration of the FEAD in the ESF Plus comes in the same line. The intervention with basic material support, it's the first step, then can be later complemented with other measures for social inclusion, access to education and jobs, in order to come out of poverty and fully benefit from the social inclusion, the real inclusion in the society. We have seen that in this time the solidarity was very important, and that's why we have been able to adapt the FEAD during the COVID times, and then during when the war started in Ukraine, and be able to put resources, financial resources, to be able to adapt to this changing needs in the society. So FEAD was the only main instrument to target the most disadvantaged person in the EU, and now ESF Plus has a component in the same line. So that's why we cannot stress more that material support is a first step towards social inclusion, and it cannot be achieved without support from your organization and other organizations which have expertise on the ground. We can provide here from the Commission, from different political environment, we can provide the framework, but then the implementation will be done by organizations like yours. I will only remind you that FEAD was able to support almost 15 million people every year. Most of them were families 30% children, 11% elderly people, and also part of the migrants and homeless people. I will just simply say that as you may know, for the future, ESF Plus will remain more or less with the same financial resources as for the FEAD. Member states have managed to put an important part of ESF Plus for material support, amounting around 4% from the overall ESF budget in different member states. And we will continue to work together in order to be sure that we adapt the support, either under direct support through material or food support, or indirect through vouchers to be used for purchasing food or other goods. I will just close here. I'm very grateful to be with you in this debate. I'm really eager to learn about good practices that will be presented later for speakers from different countries. I saw we have colleagues from France, Spain, Estonia, and Lithuania. And I will also be happy to assist you in the panel discussion later, where we have also representatives from our community of practice on material support, which is also financed with ESF. It's the part of transnational cooperation for this area, and other organizations like Red Cross and Eurodiaconia. Thank you again for your invaluable work. I wish you a fruitful and constructive debate, and I hope to see you also in our future meetings of the community of practice dedicated to material support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simona. So great to hear from the Commission as well about the change in the society, the adaptability, and as well about solidarity, which I feel like in the FEBA network, we also witnessed quite a lot. We would now like to shift the perspective to our network with the first presentation from Barbara Mauvillain from the French Federation to tell us more about their approach in combining both food aid and surplus food.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for this organization. I will share you some slides, so tell me if you see it.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, perhaps it's okay for you? You can see my slide? Or
yes.
You won't go? Okay, thank you very much. So I would like just to remind you, we are French Food Bank, so we are the first and the leading French food aid network. We are located in all territories in France and including overseas, which is very important for us. We support 2.5 million people in situation and food insecurity, thanks to our 7,000 volunteers and through our 6,000 partner association. So the number of the people we supported is rising a lot due to the cost of the living crisis and the COVID crisis. And the French Food Bank Charter paves the way for the social supports. This charter was rethink after the COVID crisis, and we follow two main goals in our charter. The first one is to fight insecurity and food waste. We also want to create social links and to improve the food we provide, and we are always adapted ourselves to meet the needs of our partners. But since the COVID crisis, we now provide direct food And also another important change is that we purchase food. So it means that we are not relying only on donation. So you can see our model of circular economy, which is based on 3 main missions: collecting, redistributing, and supporting. If we focus on the collecting part of our primary source of recovered food, you can see that the main one is from retailers and wholesalers, 44%. This part is mainly from saved from food waste. But you can also see that we have mainly diversified our supplies from the FEAD, of course, but also from the agro-based enterprise, cooperatives, the farmers. And as I said before, now we purchase some food for 3% of our primary source. What type of food redistribution for the French Food Bank? It can take different forms through our social partners. It can be through social groceries. It can be itinerant food trucks. It can be food baskets. So it's very different, and it's very linked to the difference of territory in France. As you see in your charters, we seek to improve the quality of food we provide, and we seek to achieve the objective of the French National East Nutrition Program every day of our work. And we have never been so close to the official recommendation. If I take an example, you can see that for fruits and vegetables, we went up by 8 points for our redistribution, which is a very good point, and it's a result of our work with farmers, for example. And I would like to share with you an overview of laws on food waste in France, which is very a comprehensive framework. You know that in 2016, a law, so-called Garo law, what's the name of the ministry at this time, was passed, and it's really a milestone for us to fight food waste. And it was more focused on retailers at this time. And since 2 other laws have passed, the Egalim law in 2018 and a law again waste and for circular economy in 2020. And the 2 laws extend the obligation of the Garo law to the agri-food sectors, to the catering operators, to the food wholesalers. So it means that nowadays in France, almost all the actors of the food chain have to meet obligation to reduce food waste. If we focus now on the famous Garo law, this law includes a hierarchy of 4 pillars to fight food waste. And the most important one for us, for the association, is the second one, because in the law, it is written that when stock management systems are not enough, it's mandatory to sign a donation agreement with at least one food aid organization. So it is a very strong donation lever for us and for all the food aid associations in France. But in France, the public policy pave also the way through social support. We have also a strong national legal framework to implement social support. And the main one is, again, the Egalim law, which was passed in 2018. And in this law, it is written that food aid in France is accompanied by the proposal of social support. So that's why we include them in our charter in 2021, where our charter was working after the crisis. Another point is a new program which is implemented by the French government and which was organized with us. Is a program Mieux manger pour tous in French, so in English, eating but better for all. And it's a sustainable food aid fund with aim of strengthening the quality of food aid through purchases that promote local and quality products, especially from farmers. And this program supports also the participation of people in situation of food insecurity. So it's a good level for us to diversify our action, as we said after. And that's why 3 years ago, we developed a health awareness program, means Projet Bon Assiette in France, a good gesture, good plates. Why? Because 66% of the people who are receiving food aid declare that they need to be helped and supported. And more than 70% of them declare suffering from at least one health issue. For example, diabetes, 16% against 5% in the general population, facing also problems, more and more people of obesity, of chronic diseases. So it's a huge problem we want to cope with. And the aim of this program is to improve social collection and humanism. And we want to accompany the beneficiaries towards a diversified and healthier diet. That's why we are training our association in the field on the specific support of people facing food insecurity. And on the ground, it means that we develop with the beneficiary workshop seconds. So it can be a first meeting workshop to meet another people, because lots of people we support are alone. It can be food waste workshop, how to cook. It can be a physical activity workshop, which is very important. It can be health and nutrition workshop, as I said before, for example, focus on diabetes. It can be workshop with farmers, from the field to the plate workshop, as we call them, and to promote the products of the local farmers and to teach how to cook them. And it's our program. We also develop some tools like a cooking recipes website, you can see on the right, or also a calendar of seasonal menus. And we also publish different leaflets, for example, about date of consumption, well, how to read the label in a shop. It's not easy for everyone. So we are offering with our partner social support to create a social link. We do it through food, through innovating and local project with a strong social impact. And for example, since the COVID crisis, we have developed more than 30 transformation processing workshop. And it's very useful because it's allows us to turn food donation into soups, teas, ready meals, so it can diversify our redistribution, and it improves the shelf life of our donation. And we did it also through administrative support. It's very important to accompany our beneficiaries who work effectively through work inclusion program, through budget management, and also language classes to teach French, and also to share good moments through leisure activities and outings together. So you can see that we are working day to day to achieve 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals, and thanks to the solidarity-based innovation and close collaboration with our partners, food aid can be really a bridge to social inclusion. For us, it's very at the core of our mission. And that's why, as a conclusion, I will share with you that in the context of the debate of the vouchers, in France, we are very strongly convinced that material support in combination with accompanying measures is essential to foster social inclusion. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Barbara, for a very, very fascinating presentation. I think you really showed to all of us how food is so much more and what can be done and how people in need and beneficiaries can really have added value of that. So now I would like to go to our next speaker. Sorry for my pronunciation, to Kerttu Ullakainen from Toidubank, our member in Estonia, who will tell us more about their very unique model of using food aid funds for the cost of surplus redistribution. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. My name is Kerttu Ullakainen. Thank you for having me. I'm from Estonia, and just a second, I will start this step. So, this is Estonia, and we have 1.3 million people only. And we have in Estonia, we have 16 food banks located in each county. And in Ida-Virumaa, we have 2 food banks. Let's start with the poverty in Estonia. The minimum gross salary is 820 euros per month, while the average gross salary income stands at 2,065 per month. When we delve deeper into the statistics, we find that 3.5% of our population, approximately 48,000 people, live in absolute poverty, defined as having an income of less than 300 euros per month. Even more concerning is the fact that 22.5% or about 309,000 people live in relative poverty with incomes below 756 euros per month. For those relying on social benefits, the maximum they can receive is 200 euros per month, with a slightly higher amount of 240 euros per month for children. These figures highlight the significant disparity in income and the challenges faced by the substantial portion of our population. These are important figures to keep in mind. And now we talk about important European Parliament regulation that helped us to distribute, to get funded for distributing surplus food. When you this regulation highlights the Union's commitment to tackling severe food deprivation while also addressing the problem of significant food waste. When you look at point 14 and Article 4.1 and Article, then you see that the article underscores the importance of comprehensive approach supporting not just the donations of food, but also the entire logistical chain required to ensure that surplus food reaches those who need it. Now, fiat for food donations in Estonia. One of the key insights we gained is that it is more effective to use money for the distribution of donated food. This is because with €1, more food can be distributed compared to using the same amount of money to purchase food. This approach maximizes the impact of available funds. In the spring of 2014, the Estonian Ministry of Social Affairs recognized the efficiency and decided in principle that a portion of the budget should be allocated for the cost associated with the collections, transport, and distribution of donated food. This decision aimed to leverage the potential of surplus food to address food insecurity more effectively. However, despite the theoretical advances, implementing this funding strategy proved to be quite complicated in practice. The complexity of the funding mechanisms and the administrative challenges involved made it difficult to execute this plan as initially intended. Recognizing these challenges, Ministry of Social Affairs in Estonia and the Estonian Food Bank engaged the significant lobbying efforts in Brussels. It paid off on 18th of July 2018. The European Parliament voted in favor of the simplified cost option on the regulation. This regulation simplified the funding process, making it easier for organizations to access the necessary support for food distribution. Following the legislative change in July 2019, the Ministry of Social Affairs in Estonia organized a tender for distribution of donated food. This marked a significant step forward in our support framework. Contract was signed in 2019, and later we have two more tenders that were organized. The first target group was limited because it was based on the subsidies, and some local governments didn't pay those subsidies at all. So, but right now, since 2022, we are in a new target group where it's more inclusion, and it now involves whole Estonia. We work closely with local governments. We are obligated to transport food to a big city, from big cities to smaller regions and cities, because there's the food. There is not so much food as in the big cities. The package should be at least 3 kilos and consist of 3 different food groups. We get 1.2 euros, but maximum for 3 kilo packages. Although our packages are bigger, and also if people are in need, they have mobility issues, we should bring those packages home. We also use food bus service in remote regions and in islands. This is some facts. We distributed last year 4.2 million kilos of food for approximately about 19,000 people weekly. And of that, 40% was through lists that were made by local governments, and 60% was distributed by charities. Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kertu, for this very interesting presentation, and also really proving the point that advocating for how to reach the most end beneficiaries can be successful, as seen in your case. We would now like to introduce you to Simona Skorovičius, the CEO of Maisto Bankas, our member in Lithuania, to present the hybrid model and food banks being involved in indirect material support, as well as his new, very innovative idea of social supermarkets.
Oh, hello, I hope you can hear me, as well as I hope you can see the slides. Just 1 second. Now they're bigger, right? Okay, so I will speak on behalf of the food bank in Lithuania. I will just concentrate on our solution without maybe giving a bigger overview of the situation in Lithuania, just the main figures. It's quite similar to the situation in Estonia, and some things better and some worse, but 1 out of 5 Lithuanians are at the risk of poverty. So it was very important to listen to, Simona, what she was saying, that, there is a very ambitious aim for 2030, and one out of 9, can't afford, fully fledged food. So that's why, the assistance of the, assisting, providing people with food is very important in Lithuania. So the big question is, how do we make it possible that these people would be assisted the best? And at this moment, and that's where I wanted to concentrate myself, because it's only 10 minutes, is, how we can help the best. One option is, providing the food baskets, which is amazing, because, you buy the food cheaper than people can buy it in the shop, but then you gather the food for people. So, people get only what you choose for them. Another idea, it's to provide them with the food cards or the vouchers. So there are countries where there is one voucher for all the shops. There are countries where there is only one network chosen to provide the service. In Lithuania, we're very lucky. All the shops that were willing, they could participate. So there is an option to choose a network and to get a card. The challenging thing is that it's only 25 euros per quarter per person. So you can choose the food, and it's amazing. You have got a lot of dignity. You go to a shop like a regular buyer, but the challenge is that the funds are quite restricted. So you just use 25 euro per person. So if you're a family of 4, so it's 100 euro per month, which is amazing. But still, it's 100 euro per month per quarter. So that's why what is the best option, and that's why we are very happy that our local partners, the partners at the governmental level, and I see some of them joined the discussion today. They were happy to agree on a mixed model where we provide cards, but as well as we provide the surplus, the rescued food. So we combine the option 1, giving food, and giving the food cards. So what are the key factors, about how to be successful in doing that? And it would be very important that people at the European Commission, not only on this discussion, but in general, would hear, because some things, are important, and we are, saying that it's important, but at the end of the day, it's not the reality in our country. So one of the things is that you have to have food, to be rescued. So let's see what is happening with the food. So in Lithuania, according to the official data, 400,000 tons is being wasted, 60% in the homes of people. So we cannot, we can educate, but we cannot save that food. But the rest we can save. The rest is around 160 tons. Let's look what the food bank is doing. The food bank, which, our mission is to fight the food waste and help to those people in need. We are saving out of the 140,000 possible, 6,700 tons. And it's an enormous effort, and it's a lot of food, but there is more food that can be rescued. But there are some legal things that, for example, France has and Lithuania doesn't have, which would help us, to go to a bigger potential. But speaking about this ESF Plus program, we have got 100,000 people that are willing to get this food, more or less. we provide 5 kilos per person, 5 kilos per person per quarter. So there are 4 quarters in a year. So it's 2,000 tons per year. So we rescue 6,700, and 2,000 of them will go to this 100,000 people that we can help. In general, we help to 230,000 people. However, there are quite big challenges coming now. And actually, the biggest challenge is that it gets worse and worse to rescue the food from the supermarkets. And we need to go to the farmers, and that's what we do, because if you want to have a lot of food, you need to rescue it from various places. And actually, it's not because, I mean, it's also because the shops are modernizing and they are trying to waste less, but it's also because there is no laws that would oblige you to give it for donation. Now there is one, but actually economically, at this moment is the same. You utilize the food or you give it to the charity, more or less is the same. So there is not a lot of motivation to give it to the charities by the supermarkets. And I think this could, this should be changed, and this would help to assist the needy and would reduce the wasting. So, okay, so if you have got enough food, so then you have to have the ability to deliver the food and to distribute the food. It's an amazing system in Czech Republic where the government is investing into the infrastructure of charities. You need to have vans, you need to have places that, the storages and so on and so on. It's not the case yet in Lithuania. Actually, it's nice to hear. Also, Simona was mentioning this in the beginning, that the NGOs are great partners and helped tremendously during those years of crises, and that's also the case in Lithuania. However, it would be great that also it would be, in practice, this help would come, a little bit bigger, from the state, from the legal perspective, and also from the financial perspective, and not only in the framework of one single European program, as the government is helping us, with providing some funds in this. So what's about the, ability to distribute? We opened 41, these free shops in Lithuania. You can see the way those shops look. So you see, it's a complete, dignity to a person. It looks like a regular shop. However, again, I mean, it's always a challenge to maintain those shops, because we need to rent those places. We need to have at least one employee. There are 10, 20, 30 volunteers every day, but at least one has to be an employee. One employee, one facility, creates financial tension for an NGO to maintain such a network. However, you see people happy, you see these fruits, you would not recognize, if I would not tell you that it's a free shop, you would not recognize that it's a free, that it's not a regular shop that you can see. However, again, you need to have the whole logistical system. We have got 5 warehouses in the bigger cities, and you need to have logistics every day, because the products that we deal, that you saw on the shelves, they cannot wait for the second day, as you know. Also, we have got the food processing kitchen in different cities, and we try to have them more, in order some of the things to produce, for them to live longer, to be able to go to the shops longer. And please remember, it's only 2,000 tons. There is another 4,700 that goes to organizations. But I'm not speaking now about the second part. And for sure, another very important thing for ability to get the food and to distribute are the volunteers. So what are the other important facts? And it's digitalization. I mean, you need to have everything on computers, and that's quite expensive. But if you don't do it, there is no chance to run the process. Another thing is the fair compensation of expenses, because we are doing this thing now, and it's an amazing thing, and I think it's a great model for everyone to copy. However, it has to be a fair compensation of the expenses. In many cases, I mean, we are doing it, and it's amazing that under the ESF Plus we are getting compensated. but unfortunately, it doesn't cover the costs, the real costs that we need to pay. And actually, the key here, and I want to to share it with everyone, that if you like this idea, the key is to have this vision that it's possible to do, that it's possible to have this combination, because it's very difficult. And so without the vision and a strong belief, it's not possible to do. That's why you see, I like this picture a lot. I like to do also this for you. And you see many people in the hall. We will have it also this Sunday, an event for our volunteers. You need to have, people who would believe into this mission, and you see them on the picture. It's not that they like what I'm saying, it's that they believe the same way, like I'm believing that it's possible to do. Only then it's possible to do such a program, because without that, it wouldn't be possible. And that's how the vision becomes the reality. Here are different shops in different small towns of Lithuania, and I think that's one of the best models how you can combine actually the cards together with the food. If you would ask me if it's a long project, I hope we will be able to continue from year to year and so on and so on. However, again, it's a quite a big economical struggle, and it's also a legal struggle, because if the laws are not supporting you, to get more food, if it's the same to waste or to give it to charity, then it's a challenge. And if economically you need to pay on top of what the government is giving to you to do, again, then you start thinking, I mean, how long will you be able to do it? So I saw there is not time now for questions, and I thank you, and I hope I didn't go out of the limits, those 10 minutes. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Simonas. No worries. We will have a dedicated Q&A afterwards. I'm sure some people will have questions to you. Thank you for this very inspiring and motivating presentation. Yeah, very insightful. Now we move to our last speaker from our membership, which is Pedro Castaños from the Spanish Federation, who will present the role of vouchers in Spain and the perspective of FESPAL in this development.
Hello, good afternoon. I'll try to share, I think this one. Okay. Yes. Well, Spain is being one of the, let's say, big countries which has decided to use vouchers or cards instead of delivering food. So what I will show you is what did FEAD mean to us and to poverty in Spain, and then what is the actual situation of vouchers, which I think it's a perfect model of what shouldn't be done. It's anything you can think it will go bad, it has gone bad. But well, I'll explain to you. So, okay, I don't know how to go back. No, I'll try to go back. Here. But first, just some figures about Spain, just to clarify the context. So Spain is 48 million people. So to consider in Europe, it's Germany, France, UK, and Italy are bigger. Then the fifth one is Spain. So it's quite a big country in terms of population and of size, except France and Ukraine, I think is the third biggest country. In terms of the PIB per capita is 40,000 US dollars, which means roughly in the middle of Western European countries. Then if you take the rate of at risk of poverty, it's 26.5. it went down since the beginning of the century, but the COVID made it jump, and we haven't recovered the situation before the COVID. And which is more important, more than the local rate, which is more a rate that shows the difference between the rich and the poor. But the real material and severe deprivation, it's 7.7% of population, which means that 3.7 million people can't afford protein-based food every 2 days, or can't heat their homes enough, or there is cover 7 out of 4 can't make ends meet, the month's meet. So they can't. That's the problem they have. So this is the Spanish environment, and then this is FEBA. FEBA is an aggregation of 54 food banks federation, it covers all Spain, including the islands. And last year we distributed 138,000 tons food to approximately 1,187,000 beneficiaries. So that makes that we have given around 117 kilograms per person. Well, this is the environment. This is I said you've seen there are 3.7 million of people with severe poverty, and we are giving food to 1/3, approximately 1/3 of that. So how did the FEBA program help us? Well, this is the results of FEBA program. It was supposed to be 2014, 2020, but for different reasons, it was expanded using REACT funds or using other funds. So at the end, it finished being 2014, 2023. Although I'm going to point especially the last 2-3 years. These funds or this food was distributed as food. The ministry made a tender for different. They made a basket of food, and then they made a tender for each part. So they say, for example, milk, and they said a certain amount of milk was going to be, of money was going to be used to buy milk, and so they bought, let's say, 1 million euros of milk, or 18 million euros of milk. So prices were quite low because they could have very good prices. And then this food, they made a tender again. Who would distribute this? And I think that since 2015, they made an annual tender, but there were just 2 organizations who went to the tender. Was Red Cross and FEBA. And so they divided roughly in half. So half of the money or the food for Red Cross and half for us. But these are the global figures. So you can see that at 2022, we distributed, the program distributed 79 million kilograms of food that cost around 79 million euros. That means that roughly we're buying food at 1 euro per kilogram. But then it comes 2023, and with all the problems we had with rise of the price of food, and you see that with more money. So it was increased close to 10%. We distributed much less product. So the cost of food was more close to 1.6 euros per kilogram. What this mean for us? Well, no, before this. This means that this year, 2023, for FESVAL, 16% of the food we distributed came from this program. But it was different in different regions. In some regions, it went up to 50% of what they distributed. Well, then it was a new program. FEAD was changed to ESF Plus. And then Spanish government decided that it was going to be used as vouchers. That means that people will receive a card with money. The theory is that this way they don't have the shame of going to collect food. Well, we have discussed many times, not this advantage, but all the problems that have. It's less food because it's more expensive. The price is much more expensive, and it takes people out of the organization that distribute food. But well, then what happens? They decided to use vouchers. Second decision, which is forced because the ESF program is not centrally managed, but it is managed by the regions. So that means that in Spain there are 16 regions. We call them autonomies, and which means that could be absolutely different what is done in a province to what is done in the province just beside. You change 1 kilometer, you may have right to have food or not. No? And as things could go even worse, the government decided that this was not going to be given to all people in need, but just with families with dependent minors. Could be just one father or mother with one child, or up to whatever, or a couple or whatever. But if you don't have if you don't have children, you don't have pay. And when we look at what was happening before, that means that this help will go to 70,000 families, which was only 16% of people we were helping. So elderly people will not have any money, or people with children of 17 or 18 years, unemployed people will not have help, or the social kitchens will not have food, or so this was the 3 decisions taken by the central government. The reason, which is very good in theory, was that people will not have to make queues to receive money, which were something bad for them. Okay, then this is the way it's going to be established. So if you are one person, you don't have right. But if you are 2 people, that's one parent with 1 children, will have 130 euros per month. Well, then with 3 people, 160, with 4 people, 190, and 5 or more, there is a limit. 5 or more people in a family will receive 220 euros. That's the way it is done and organized today. Then what happened? They knew that the ESF Plus program was going to start this year, and they knew that since 2 years ago. But as it has happened a lot of movements, political movements, reality is they did nothing. So when 2024 came, nothing was prepared. So they said, what will we do? And so what they did, they chose a distribution NGO, which was Red Cross, and they said, you will give the cards. Who will you give the cards to? These kind of people. Who will tell you where are the people with just one minor and with need, which are in need? They said, oh, it will be the regions. And then the situation is like this. What's happening now? Well, Red Cross were trying to get a capillary network of supermarkets who accepts to change all their systems to accept the cards, which can be used only for certain products. The card can be used to buy alcohol or to buy other products. So in 3 months, they had to go to a chain and say, oh, you should change all your systems, and so you can use these cards. So most of the chains said, no, I'm not going to do this. So at the end, they selected 8 chains, but that has produced that a figure that we really don't know, but we estimate, well, not we, the regional governments estimate between 50 to 80% of towns have not a supermarket who will accept the cards for the vouchers. So you are telling somebody who has not much money, okay, we are not going to give you food. Well, to many of them, we are not going to give you food. To the people with minors, you're going to say, okay, you'll have a car to buy food. You've got to go to a village or a town which is 30 kilometers away to take your food. So it's absolutely crazy. And then, if that was not enough, what happens is that the regional governments or the town halls says, we are not prepared to tell which are the families with minors and with who may use the cards. We have not an organization to tell you that now. So the program that should have begun on May 1st has not started yet. And I think it will take long to start because there is a big political meeting at the end of this month, I think tomorrow. But unfortunately, this has been taken as a battlefield for parties. So as the central government is for one party, and many of the regional governments are from the other party, or the main other party, so whatever is said by the central government, the regional government says, no, we will not do that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't expect that this program will start before July or maybe even later. What will happen next year? We don't know yet, but what we think is that central government will not go back. They will say, we'll maintain this system. Because for next year they have translated the problem to the regional governments. So they said, oh, it's not my problem, it's the problem of the regional government. I'm giving the money, so they know what they have to do. And probably the situation will be that some regions will have funds and others will not have at all. So we are in the, well, everything can go worse, but we have gone enough to the bottom. And I would have liked to give you a success story, but it's not at all. It's the perfect model of what shouldn't be done. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Time's up. Well, yeah, I guess these are very worrying tendencies that we can observe in Spain. We definitely took note, and I'm sure that there will be a few questions afterwards in the Q&A. Yeah, so now we're approaching the second half of the webinar. We would like to shift your attention to the upcoming panel discussion with speakers from the Red Cross EU office, Eurodiaconia, and the COP on materials support. We would start with a short introduction of tour de table, so we can then move to a more in-depth discussion. So I would give the floor to our speakers for the opportunity to introduce themselves, their organization, their perspectives and experiences with EU-funded material support, and what are their opinions on the transition from incorporating FEAD into ESF+. Maybe we can start with Luis, if that's okay.
I wasn't sure. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Lily. And thanks a lot for the FEBA colleagues for having invited me and obviously the Red Cross to be present in your event. Super interesting to hear about the colleagues that have presented before. And indeed, there's a couple of questions that I will drop later if there's the time. So about myself, I work as a policy and program officer at the Red Cross EU office. The Red Cross EU office just very, very quickly represents the interests of 27 national societies across the EU and also Icelandic and Norwegian Red Cross. Regarding the topic, obviously, of food aid and material assistance, surprisingly, national societies across the EU 27, they deliver food aid and material support regardless of the use of EU funds or without EU funds, and they delivered food aid in different forms, from food packages, food parcels, in soup kitchens, through social grocery shops like in Luxembourg, for example, and also in the case of vouchers and electronic vouchers. And we do so regardless of people's status, regardless of people's religious beliefs, origins, personal income, sexual orientation, self-identity, race, or ethnicity. Now, going to your question, there's 2 points that I would like to bring or to raise to begin with to the first, let's say, a question. It's the topic of working together, and then secondly, it would be the topic of stability regarding the use of FEAD into the transition of ESF+. The topic of working together is something that we hear, and I have heard several times over the last years from colleagues working also in local branches at a national level, is the importance of the architecture of FEAD, of being a fund that was basically built into organizations, civil society, with expertise, with knowledge, with commitment, with the trust of delivering, like in this case, material support and food aid. The importance of working together in the coordination, in the implementation, in delivery, and also in the logistics of the delivery of the food aid and material support. Of course, with hiccups, with the bureaucracy, with the administrative burden, but still it's something that, from the Red Cross perspective, it has always been very, very positive to work together with colleagues from the food banks, obviously, that probably you know very well, my colleagues at national level, but also with other organizations like Eurodiaconia, Caritas, and so on and so forth. And then the second point that I wanted to bring quickly is the stability. And what do I mean by stability? What I mean by stability is that FEAD offer a very good set of products, of course, canned products, dry products, but nevertheless, a set of products that it was planned in the delivery once, twice, 3 or 4 times a year, depending obviously on the member state, which allowed colleagues, especially working at the local level, to really plan their agendas ahead, to really know when those set of products will be delivered, and then obviously to do the extra mile to go for like fresh products, products that actually people would like to eat, products adapted to the different dietary restrictions or diabetes and so on and so forth. So it is actually also like something quite positive in the sense that colleagues from the Red Cross always highlighted into this in this factor. And then finally, regarding and to not take a lot of time, regarding the transition into ESF Plus, one of the main things that we hear constantly, besides sharing what Pedro shared, I mean, I'm sure you know very well Maria Jesus, my colleague from the Spanish Red Cross, and it's almost like to listen to her, what you just said. But I think for us, one of the things that we notice a lot in the transition, that obviously we consider that the transition happened under COVID-19, which obviously is a crisis that is unpredictable in a sense. But one of the things that we hear and we always give us feedback, especially to the Commission, is the sense that the transition was done without hearing 100% what civil society was actually bringing to the table. It doesn't mean that we were not heard, but it means that some of the problems that we see are actually problems that could have been actually maybe prevented or avoided in a way. And I remember like some years ago with the issue, for example, of vouchers that have very positive, there can be positive examples on the use of vouchers, but they were at the beginning kind of like tried to be imposed a bit obligatory. Then it was optional at the end, which allowed some obviously some flexibility in some member states, but nevertheless, in some countries, like for example, the case of Spain, the fact that they being obligatory has actually made that some people are falling behind, which obviously it's a problem in itself. So I just to wrap up and to leave the floor to my colleagues in the panel. Very important, like for us, stability of the fund. Very important working together with other organizations, but also very important to listen to actors working on the ground with experience, with the trust for the beneficiaries, with knowledge, and also with a lot of commitment to work towards eradicating poverty. And I think I'll stop there for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Luis. Maybe we can move to Annika from Eurodiaconia.
Yes, thank you very much also from my side for the invitation to speaking today. For those of you who don't know Eurodiaconia, it's a European network of Protestant and Christian NGOs providing social and healthcare services across Europe, but also outside the European Union and advocating for social justice. And our members are very involved in supporting people and families in vulnerable situations, those at risk of poverty and social inclusion, and therefore also providing food and material aid to those in need. And before I add on that what Luis just said, I wanted to share a very small personal experience because before I started working for Eurodiaconia, I used to work as a social worker myself. And from our perspectives, like on the ground, my colleagues and I, we always tried, wherever we worked, we always tried to have a very good connection to the local food banks or soup kitchens, etc. Because whatever target group it was, whatever beneficiaries we worked with, whether it was children in poverty, refugees, the homeless, it was always very important to have a good relationship to the food banks. And even before COVID, before the Ukrainian war, we realized that, or we saw that some of the local food banks were really struggling to keep the help up for more and more people coming in and more people who were in need and needed the support of the food banks. And now looking at that, like this very personal experience from a very local ground, looking at it from a European policy perspective and angle, I think this personal assessment seems to have become a reality all over Europe. So many members of ours report the rising numbers of people in need of food aid. So for example, one of our Swedish members, they saw an increase from 65 to more than 600 clients in just 1 year in their Stockholm social grocery store. We saw that the Swedish City Mission, for example, they saw a doubling in the numbers of visitors in 2022. And even though they run lots of other projects, but in that year, due to the high rise of beneficiaries in their food aid programs, they had to spend 2/3 of all their money and all their services on food aid just in that year because the numbers were so high. And we still see that ongoing throughout 2023 and also 2024. So something that I really want to stress is that NGOs, social service providers and food banks, from what we hear, have really used their creativity, their passion, their resilience to really keep up the aid, even though they have rising numbers of people visiting or in need of the food aid. and then at the same time coping with financial or logistical issues. And this is particularly the case from what we hear for smaller organizations who have less resources, both financial resources, but also when it comes to staff, like staffing resources are quite an important issue as well. And that is especially important when keeping in mind that those small organizations are often those who locally work with the people at the very emergence of societies. So when it comes to FEAD, I think we've heard that before, that it's still the transition phase somehow, right? So it's really hard to already give a real assessment of how it's going. But here again, we hear that especially for smaller organizations, they're struggling a lot more than bigger organizations who have the resources to really do advocacy, to really cope with the ongoing changes, etc. And especially when it comes to the rising costs. We've heard that, I think it was Spain, which I thought was really interesting, that they had more money but could serve less people and less food just because of the cost of the food, right? So that is something that our members are struggling quite a lot with. And then one last thing that I really want to highlight as well is that despite all these funding measures, whether it is FEAD, whether it is ESF+, we still see very high levels of poverty. Like throughout all the presentations that we heard today from different countries, we really heard that in all the countries, the risk of poverty and social exclusion, the share of people is quite high, even the share of people at material deprivation. So that really affects the most vulnerable and marginalized across Europe, but also more and more middle-income families who just can't make their needs at the end of the month. So that's why for us, food aid is immensely important. But we also want to underline that food aid is a bridge towards empowerment and social inclusion, a very important one. But in fact, it shouldn't be a long-term solution. So we really need long-term solutions to tackle poverty, to tackle the root causes of poverty. And just to sum up, one of our Spanish members, he said recently that food insecurity is a symptom of inequality. And I think that there's quite a lot of truth in that, and that we really have to address the structural problem as well.
Thank you, Annika. Very interesting indeed. And I would give the floor now to our final speaker, Geile.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this invitation, and also thank you for all the speakers before. It was really interesting and very inspiring to hear those different practices. So my name is Geile Baltutė. I work in the Lithuanian Anti-Poverty Network, but I also, and I'm here mainly today as one of the experts in the community of practice on material support. So in our COP, we bring together different stakeholders, and we have more than 100 registered members. And I'm glad to see some familiar faces and some active members of our COP here today. So we aim to enhance the provision of material support across the member states by consolidating that knowledge, building capacity, and promoting collaboration. So in our COP, we discuss different topics related to implementation of material support programs, for example, vouchers, digital tools, accompanying measures, and so on. For example, during our last meeting in Athens, we talked about participation and involving the target group. And now we are in the very early stages of preparation on a recommendation paper on that. Actually, one of the topics was also on the transition from FEAD to ESF+. And as Mona mentioned, FEAD achieved really significant results in providing food and basic material assistance to approximately 15 million people every year, which I think really demonstrates the critical role of FEAD in addressing basic needs. And also, as in this period, FEAD was integrated into ESF Plus. I think that one of the reasons why it was done, it's not only to ensure continuation of support through food and basic assistance, but also to aim to incorporate other social integration measures and to find synergies with other programs to address the root cause of poverty and social exclusion. And as Simona also mentioned, that material support and food support is usually the first step towards social inclusion. So it's probably a bit too early to evaluate transition and the results of ESF Plus, because this programming period only started this year in many of the countries. But just to give you the main tendencies, so the first of all is that ESF Plus regulation mandates that member states allocate at least 3% of their ESF resources to material support, or in some cases social inclusion measures. But as far as I know, that most member states exceed this threshold. Also, member states really adopt very different approaches to address material deprivation. And we saw from our questionnaire to the managing authorities that we did last year that it includes material support, direct support, like distribution of food and material support, with the food packages remaining the most popular form of support. But the majority of member states really employ a combination of different support methods. And from those who responded to the questionnaire, 83% use 2 or more types of material support in their programs. And also there is indirect support like vouchers, which are getting more popular in this period. And we saw from the questionnaire that it will be implemented in at least 8 countries in this period. And also the accompanying measures that were introduced in the previous programming period, but in the ESF Plus, it's also mandatory to implement them. So we also saw from the questionnaire and the map and report that we did afterwards that social counseling and guidance services are the most prominent measures, but also financial literacy, childcare support, and family support, and so on. So this topic is also relevant with our COP members, and we share some good practices during our COP meetings, and there's definitely a huge variety of them, I would say. So maybe that's it for now.
Thank you, Ramgaila. Yes, that's indeed very interesting to also have some facts and figures. I think that always helps. We have one second question prepared, and I think after that we can give the floor to everyone. And I already saw that there's some questions in the chat. So the last question to you is really with, as you mentioned already, with the ongoing crisis, poly-crisis effect of the aftermath of COVID and the war in Ukraine and inflation. What are some strengths and weaknesses that you observed when it comes to material support? Yeah, maybe you can give us your thoughts on that. Whoever wants to go first.
I can begin. I mean, indeed, in the past few years, we had a very difficult socioeconomic situation, and of course, it hit the most vulnerable the hardest, and we see that also from different aspects, and also from the increase of people in need for support. But I think that once again, EU funds have been a crucial tool in providing that much needed support, and the ability to mobilize and allocate resources effectively, that has been really vital in ensuring that support reaches the most affected individuals and families. And during the COVID pandemic, we saw that EU-funded programs could really shift to meet the immediate needs, and emergency food packages and hygiene kits and so on were distributed, I would say, effectively despite the lockdowns. And similarly, last year, for example, we had our COP meeting in Warsaw, which faced a huge influx of refugees from Ukraine. So they also acted very fast to reallocate resources and to adapt support programs to provide those essential aid to the refugees. But that also happened in other countries as well. And as I mentioned before, I think that the variety of measures and combination of them can also allow us to adapt to different situations in different crises also. And also I think that in many cases it strengthened collaboration between different stakeholders, because cooperation is crucial in addressing these challenges. But I also want to believe that ESF Plus framework facilitates sharing the best practices and mutual learning among member states and different stakeholders in response to this crisis. But of course, there are some challenges, and the first thing that comes to mind is probably bureaucratic and administrative challenges, because of the complex procedures which can really delay the delivery of support in times of crisis, especially. Because also the implementation of schemes in member states really vary a lot, which is good, but it might also lead to different levels of effectiveness to respond to this crisis. And another one, quite obvious one, would be a budget limitations, because these ongoing crises have really stretched the financial resources, and inflation and rising costs have made it really challenging for material support to meet those growing needs of vulnerable people. And however, in Warsaw, we had a very interesting discussion about that. And the question was raised whether we should use these funds as a tool to cope with this crisis at all, because even though it really has played a very important role in this past and still ongoing crisis, but maybe there should be another separate tool which would be more flexible, adaptable, and maybe more suitable to cope with these immediate needs. And lastly, even though it was mentioned before, I really also want to stress that it's important to say that this crisis only revealed our long-term issues and significant gaps in our social security systems. So there's a clear need for more substantial investment in our social security systems to build resilience, because I guess there's no signs that we should relax now. So that would be my input.
Yeah, thank you. That was really interesting to hear your perspective as well. I think you already mentioned quite a lot of things. I would add that from a social service provider perspective, one asset and one strength was really the social inclusion approach. So many of our members, they combine food aid with social counseling centers, for example. Or we have one member in Finland, for example, they started a new project just recently that tries to tackle the relatively high unemployment situation with their food help, their food aid program. So the food aid chain and its coordination are now developed in such a way that the chain enables new specific employment opportunities from people from that region who are outside the working or educational life. So this is just to show you that there are lots of possibilities, lots of opportunities to really combine food aid as a bridge to social inclusion and really combine those two things. But then also we saw that it was really helpful to really address the emergency social needs combined with the social inclusion, but especially for those who are most vulnerable, most marginalized, and most excluded individuals or communities in our society. And that this, especially there, it was quite special that it went beyond the mere labor market integration and really focused on social and basic needs. And that way, our members were able to reach EU mobile citizens, children in poverty, refugees, other people in vulnerable situations that often fall through the social safety net that they usually provide. Next to that, there was the low threshold approach that was really appreciated. So allowing access to basic goods and services without a lot of conditionality. And lots of our members have said that this approach was really pivotal in reaching out to the most marginalized and excluded, just because, as I said, they often fall through the net and don't benefit from traditional support programs. And next to that, there are some weaknesses as well. We already talked about the administrative burden. So even though FEAD was appreciated for its relatively high administrative requirements compared to other EU programs, it was still a burden for many organizations. Here again, it really depended on the size. We have members who have worked quite a lot and for many years with FEAD who said it's totally doable for us now because we got used to it. We know what we have to do, but just getting started and getting into it was really difficult for many. Also, the fact that many had to use their own funds as well was quite difficult. We have big organizations who can now contribute to their own funds to the ESF Plus projects, but for small organizations, that is quite a problem as well. And then especially with FEAD, we saw that we often needed an intermediary or municipality in between that was sometimes critical for our especially smaller organizations to then get the funding. So it would also be helpful to have direct funding, especially for smaller organizations.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to reinvent the wheel. I think everything is said, and I couldn't agree more with everything that was said. But just to bring a couple of things, obviously, crises are crises. They cannot be predicted. What we can do, obviously, as a whole is to be better prepared to navigate them. And I mean, and for that, I couldn't agree more with what Ringaile said before. What we need is to have well-funded social and health social services. And this is something that is important to emphasize, is not the problem of having a continuous lack of well-invested like social and health services is not something that started with COVID-19 pandemic or with the war in Ukraine. It's something that we can trace back to how the 2008 economic crisis was actually handled across different member states. Obviously, from a Red Cross perspective, it's been very welcome, the flexibility provided by the Commission regarding all the projects, all the programs that they were launched during COVID-19 pandemic, and also with Ukraine, React-EU, CRI+. We always had the feeling that support was actually being received at local level. There was never like the feeling of funds are not arriving. But I think one of the most important things, and to repeat myself from the previous point, through those months where there was like all the colleagues at local level were very stretched, because basically people were locked down. There was a lot of volunteers that could actually not turn on because they were from the risk groups, or the people that just turn on the train stations to receive and to support people fleeing Ukraine. Is this amount in this amazing amount of solidarity shown by civil society, and also by the people volunteering and working also on civil society. Is probably one of the strengths, is the working together, and how we as a whole, we actually provide support to people in need. But of course, I mean, this has to be channeled through funds, and as Rungaile said as well, I mean, it's interesting to hear that this 3% mandatory in ESF Plus is already has been gone over in some member states, which is actually work to do for all of us when the Commission starts discussing for the next MFF and the next ESF Plus, and these envelopes, and specifically the earmarks for material support. I think there's a lot of work to do for all of us to secure that it's guaranteed that there is a specific amount of money addressing like the needs of Europe's more vulnerable citizens. And as a last point, I just wanted to say, and also to come up with a point that came up in Warsaw, and also Rungaile mentioned it as well, is the fact of which funds we allocate for emergencies. I think one of the things that we have seen a lot in the Red Cross is that it's been very positive to use remnants from previous funding programs, in this case, to support vulnerable households and people in need during COVID-19 or the war in Ukraine. But those are structural funds. Structural funds are there to address societal changes, are there to be linked to the European Pillar of Social Rights, which is a wonderful compass provided by the Commission to achieve social Europe and a more fair and justice Europe. And they are supposed to be linked with principles. And what I mean with this is, like, perhaps, as Rungaile said as well, and I couldn't agree more, perhaps we need to think about something else, something specific to address emergency crises, emergency situations that cannot pull out money from funds that are supposed to address long-term unemployment across young populations, that are supposed to address gender equality, access to housing, Roma inclusion, and so on and so forth. So I would say that I will just stop there, but I would say that so a lot of strengths in the way we have all addressed together these poly crises, but at the same time a lot of like things to work and to do for the next years to come regarding some challenges ahead. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, there's definitely a lot of work ahead, and I want to thank our panelists again for their availability today to speak and to join our event. I would now give the floor to my colleague Anna, who will coordinate a bit the Q&A session, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat.
Good morning, also from my side. Now we solved the technical issue. Yeah, so I can see 3 questions. No, actually, yeah, 3 questions in the chat. No, they have been added some more. First, do we get the presentation? The first I want to address the practical question. Yeah, we will check with the respective speakers if this is fine or not. In any case, this webinar is recorded, and the recording is published, or it will be also on the website after we finish the event. So you can rewatch however how many times you would like to do so. Then I would go straight to the question from the Ukrainian Food Banks Federation. And they're referring to the increasing need for food aid in Ukraine and the resulting increasing number of refugees also entering the EU. And the question is to Simona from the European Commission, so I will add you here. Would you like to respond? He's asking if it wouldn't be more effective to implement programs for material support also directly in Ukraine.
As for the programs, supporting the programs in Ukraine, of course, at this stage, it's possible to do it in another framework. I mean, in this pre-accession exercise where they can have access to different types of funds. I'm not at all aware of this process because this is another DG NEAR working on enlargement, and maybe, of course, they would find their resources. Otherwise, in the meantime, of course, we are happy to help with any other means, but from DG Employment for the moment, it's quite limited from our side. And I will also then maybe after the questions, if I also have some comments and maybe one suggestion to make, but I can come back later.
Okay, then I would straight hand over to Pedro because there's a question to you from Paula Capodistias, who's saying, thank you for the brilliant overview of the concerning situation in Spain, and asking you, Pedro, what is FESPA doing in regards to this situation, and is there any ongoing advocacy work with the EU to fix this situation? So feel free.
Well, I think the decision of using the ESF plus money or funds as it is, it's not an European decision. It's a country decision. So the European Union said you can and you can use it giving food or using vouchers. So the country decided to do whatever they wanted with this open position. So I think we can. All we are doing is just expressing what's the actual situation, but there is not the European Union where it could be solved, but it is in Spain, in the Spain government, and in the Spain regions where it should be adjusted. Nevertheless, it's a very sensible situation because personally, as FESPAL, we don't want at all to get into a party's war, the right against the left and whatever. We are trying to help people, and this is close to be one place where they will fight, and we try to be awake. We try to tell everybody we are here to help. We'll do whatever necessary to help, but it's not all we can do is just explain and show what's really happening. That is that having the money, we don't know when it will come to people, and even we don't think it will cover all necessities. So, as a summary, we are not going to the EU to make any advocacy because we don't think it's a place. We are trying to do it to the Spanish government, and we are going to do it with the regions. What we are saying to the Spanish minister is, well, it hasn't been a good decision. Could you go back to the previous, which was developed during 10 years, and it worked? I would say that with not much hope, but we should do it. And then what we are doing is going to the regional governments and saying, we've got here a problem, you've got here a problem, and we are here to help, but we need funds. So if you want to help people in poverty in, let's say, Andalusia, we'll help, but you have to give us either the money or the food to distribute it. That's it.
If I quickly come in on this from the Commission side, as Pedro explained, of course, there is this flexibility that member states can opt for either combining different types of support and so on. But still, if as you did before, if from your side you see that there is a risk of delaying the implementation or not giving the necessary support because of administrative issues or other, as you said, any other factors that can intervene here, of course you have to signal it to the Commission. Of course, you are invited to come in front and say, okay, we have here experience on the field, we know how it works, and I think we have to be heard on this. I know that you don't have the power to change things. Maybe we don't even have the power to change things, but we have to be informed about this. I mean, those people working from the Commission side on this problem have to be informed that these problems exist, and maybe there are some measures that they can take. Even if we don't have direct influence on the choices that the member state will make.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Then there is another question. It's coming from Food Bank Albania to you, Annika, asking, Luis is asking if your diaconia is present in Albania and if it's possible to establish a connection.
So far, we're not present in Albania, but we're always happy to expand our network and get in touch with others. So if you would like to, I can just drop my email address and then you can just drop me an email and we can be in touch.
Thank you. That would be great. There's another question from Altion. I would, since you're part of the network and we're running a little bit out of time, I would offer to put you in contact with Barbara from France directly, so you can have this conversation separately, which goes a little bit beyond our topic. It's very, very interesting, and we're super happy about your question, Altion. But yeah, let's, I mean, we will follow up separately. And then with that being said, I would hand over again to you, Simona, so that you can comment and you have your suggestions before we close the Q&A session and we come to the closing remarks.
Yes, thanks a lot. I'll be short today. So coming back to this discussion on future MFF, we had meetings already, bilateral meetings with organization. I have met Luis, who was very proactive in this area, and I would like to take this occasion to, as you are different organizations here, that I plan to organize a meeting with different organizations working in this field, as we used to do before. With the FEAD, start to have some discussions, mainly on the future of post 27, how this material support should look in the post 27. So I will try to reach you by end of June to start preparing maybe a meeting for early September, if you're available, and start having these exchanges, because we really need your input here and your opinions, and try to engage in a more consistent dialogue for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simona. This is very, very appreciated, and we're looking forward to the exchange. Yeah, then I would say thank you everyone thank you to all the panelists and to all the speakers, to Lily for moderating the panel discussion. And that being said, I would like to hand it over to Esteban Arriaga, our CEO for.
Hello, thank you very much, Anna. Hello, everybody. Again, thanks everybody for participating in this meeting today. It's great, a great opportunity to hear from all of the different stakeholders. And I do mean stakeholders, meaning that we all come together for a common objective, and that is to support others. From the discussions we've had today, I'm still digesting a lot of the elements that were brought up, but some elements do resonate. One, we had discussions about what is a crisis, people referring to COVID, pre-COVID, we have the Ukrainian. Now, I think it's worth reflecting where are we and where we're going to be. Is this the new normal in Europe? Meaning that it is pre-COVID, we're not going to get there again, and we need to make that realization that needs are high, and there's a lot more that needs to be done, and that's why these kind of forums are so important, bringing so many people together to share their ideas, their experiences, but also to bring together a level of coordination in all the elements that come together at that point for the people in need. So we've talked about food. Obviously, I will focus a bit on the food element, but also on the elements around food, which is all the social services that were brought into it. We know that the underlying results of poverty are many, and not one can solve those elements. And it takes many, many stakeholders with their respective expertise to deliver an impactful and hopefully life-changing result to those people. So I think that is one of the reasons we have people from so many different organizations coming together today. We also talk about the need not only for more, with the increase in need, we of course need more resources, but there's also different approaches that are being put into place. We also need policy support in making sure that the right incentives are put in place to stimulate that ongoing support. I heard also about the need to be collective in our approaches, not least also in the consultation across the different levels that participate together, both at the European Commission, but the national, at the regional, and then also the community level. And I think that is an important element when we move forward, that we always take into consideration that every decision that we make, we should be inclusive. And then we are not inclusive in decision making in the policies that we make or in the actions that we take, but also that we respect all the people that actually need that help. And I think that is a huge task for all of us. And for that, again, I want to extend our appreciation for your contributions, for your ideas. I hope that after this meeting, we all go and digest a bit more of all the elements that were brought by all of you, by the people that participated or were listening in. So I want to thank you and thanks a lot to the team for putting all this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esteban. I think we can wrap up this meeting then. I saw some questions appeared in the chat. I will make sure to follow up via email so nobody gets lost and we take care of everyone. And I can also imagine that some questions will arise after the event, as Esteban said, once you have time to digest. So always feel free to send us an email or reach out. So thanks again and have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.